Hello, and welcome to Unpreachy, a podcast of homilies and reflections by the voices of St. John Chrysostom Parish. Today, Father Brian Zumbrum offers a homily on Matthew chapter 13, verses 44 to 52, the Gospel reading for July 30th, 2023.
So a few weeks ago, the Oblates asked me to update my last will and testament. And as part of that, they wanted me to list any valuable possessions and what I wanted to have happen to them after I die. So the funny thing is, after I wrote this list, I realized that the collective monetary worth of the items I wrote down was about $20. It was an old rosary, a box of letters, some photo albums, a porcelain shoe, a wind chime, and a handful of ceramic penguins, one with a broken wing. But these items are truly the most important items I possess. They are my most precious treasures. I would literally sell off everything else I own and most of the things the Oblates own in order to keep them. For they link me to a web of relationships that have always defined me. They remind me of my history, where I come from, and what has shaped me into who I am. And they are tangible items that declare to the world that I am loved by some pretty incredible people. Which is why I needed to write them down. Because to anyone else who walked in that room, it would be easy to just see junk, knickknacks, random papers, and I know my Oblate brothers. When one of us goes, that room ends up in a dumpster faster than you can possibly imagine. If they didn't know what they were looking for, it would be easy for all that treasure to end up trash. It's a lesson that I'm always reminded of when I look at the gospel for this weekend. Because honestly, the guy at the beginning of this parable is just strange. Who wanders onto someone else's property and starts digging it up, possibly going to find something in this field? Friends, if any of you looked outside your window and saw a random person digging up your yard, and then when you asked them what they were doing, they go, "There might be something here," you'd call the cops. Instead, we hear this parable and we're like, "Oh, yeah, of course it makes sense. Absolutely, go find your fields, people. Just start digging them up." The best part is we have no idea if the owner had any clue what was in his field. Did he know there was treasure buried there? Or, probably more likely, the treasure is not something he found value in. So when random stranger X shows up and goes, "I will buy your field for this treasure," they're like, "Absolutely. If I get some cold hard cash out of this arrangement, it is worth much more than whatever treasure you found in my field." It's funny. We never get told the owner's intentions or view of this whole scenario. And frankly, I don't know if we're ever supposed to quite understand the motivations that has this guy trespassing and digging up somebody else's field. And yet, in classic parable fashion, these two figures are supposed to tell us a lot about God. If this scenario is really supposed to give us insight into the kingdom of God, then the one takeaway is that the kingdom is not something we're supposed to expect or understand. It is not going to look like the kingdoms that we're accustomed to. The ones found in boardrooms and governors' mansions, Wall Street and the Pentagon. It is not a kingdom that will be judged by the standards of this world. It will not play by the rules of this world. Wealth, power, privilege, all the ways we account someone successful, all the ways we deem a kingdom to be functioning well, matter nothing in the kingdom of God. The kingdom, at first glance, is going to make little sense. It will be easy to misunderstand that what we're looking at is not treasure, but just somebody else's dirt that's been dug up. But if we are willing to see the kingdom through the eyes of this God who defies so often our understanding, we will encounter treasure in all those unlikely of places. We may just encounter the kingdom that is all around us and within us. For in each person we encounter, particularly those most marginalized, we discover that treasure. The homeless woman waving the sign at the intersection that we drive through every day on our way to work. The young man recently released from prison after serving his time for a gun charge. The migrant laborer enduring the punishing heat while living in the shadows without documentation. The young professional diagnosed with depression struggling to maintain the facade that everything's okay. The family member with dementia who's been recently moved into the assisted living and no longer knows their own children. In each moment in which we choose gospel values over the logic of the world around us, we uncover that treasure again and again and share it with the world. When we're willing to sacrifice for the sake of another, when we are generous and do not count the cost, when we forgive even when there is no apology forthcoming, when we seek justice for our neighbor simply because they are our neighbor and there is no benefit to us, when we walk the ways of peace and nonviolence in the midst of fear and anger, hatred and aggression, when we choose to love unconditionally and allow ourselves to be loved unconditionally in return. My friends, this weekend, the treasure of the kingdom has once again been revealed to us. And though it may not make a lot of sense to an outside observer, it should to all of us Christian treasure hunters gathered here today. For we are still given that invitation to leave the rest behind and pursue the one treasure, the kingdom that really matters. May we do so, because I'm convinced in finding this treasure in all the unlikeliest of places, we will encounter the God in whose kingdom we seek. May God be praised.
Unpreachy is a production of St. John Chrysostom Parish in Wallingford, Pennsylvania. Visit us at sjcparish.org. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with a friend. This podcast was produced by Brendan Lorden with music by Skytoes on Upbeat. Thanks for listening. Be well.